We used to prank call the suicide hotline, dude.
Really?
Oh, all the time. Dude, when I grew up, let me tell you something right now. What do you mean, really? You're acting surprised?
Isn't that like highly illegal?
Stop. We used to do it from a payphone.
Okay. That's amazing.
So here's what we used to do. We used to call, there's a few hotlines we used to call. We used to call the National Runaway Switchboard and say we were runaways.
Okay.
We used to call the Covenant House 9 line, where we would call 1-800-999-9999. And the Covenant House 9 line was like just a crisis hotline. And all they were allowed to say is inappropriate. So like we were like dumb young kids, you know? And like they'd be like 9 line and I'd be like, you want to see my pussy? And they'd be like, and then the woman would just go inappropriate and hang up the phone. Inappropriate. It was like one gay guy used to answer all the time. He's like, hello, Covenant House 9 line. And I'd be like, you want to see my pussy? And he'd be like, inappropriate. And then like a Spanish woman would answer all the time. And she'd be like, Covenant House 9 line. And I'd be like, I'm having problems with my mom. And she'd be like, yeah, why? And I'm like, she fucks me in my ass. And she'd just go inappropriate and hang up.
That's great.
Yeah, we used to do that as little kids. And then we'd call the suicide hotline. Too, and we'd just be dumb. We would just say stupid shit. We weren't really good at prank calls. We were learning how to get good at prank calls. But I feel like horrible now because now, you know, as you get older, you realize that some people really needed that line, and I was tying it up. But they usually hung up on us pretty quickly. Like we were usually... But that's where I got my like chops as a talker from, was like calling the suicide hotline in front of my friends. And when people ask me like, how did you get your start in comedy? I said, I would call the crisis line or the runaway line or the suicide line in front of a group of people and try to keep the person on the phone for a while and then try to make them laugh and try to make my friends laugh. And that was, you know, I mean, I told that famous story a million times where I call up and I go, I'm a detective and this is about your mother. And the guy goes, no, I know it's a prank call because my mother's dead. I'm like, you didn't let me finish. She's at Holyrood Cemetery, right? Because I just guessed the biggest cemetery in Long Island. He goes, yeah. And I go, yeah, her grave's been horribly defaced. And I think you should get down there. He's like, oh my God, what happened? You know? And it was legendary. The guys that were over the house that night, like it was like 5 of us like sleeping over. They were like, this is fucking amazing. People still talk about it to this day. Because, you know, the call kind of ended where the guy was like going to the cemetery.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think he went? He probably went.
I think he could have went, but maybe like halfway there, he was like, wait a minute, something's wrong. I was like, yeah, I'm like, we're down here right now. Mother's grave was defaced. Did she have any enemies? We didn't understand anything. I'm like, you have any time? Can you get down here? You know, and I sounded kind of like the way I do now.
Yeah.
Like the way a cop would kind of sound.
Yeah.
You know, but I think, I mean, it's horrible when I think back on it, but it was really, really amazing. And like people from Long Island, like the guys that were in the room still talk about it. He's like, all right, I'm getting in my car right now. I'm going. I mean, literally when I hung up the phone, everybody started cheering, clapping, because this guy was supposedly in the car on the way to see his mother's grave that had been horribly defaced.
Do you get a call back?
No, we star 67.
Right.
Used to block the number.
Right.
So nobody
no
would,
caller ID and they can't
it would
call
just
back.
say whatever it would say, like restricted or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Because star 69 was, you missed the last call. People go, star 69, who's the last number? Every now and then we'd forget, or we'd just like idiots. We'd be like doing something stupid. We'd be like drinking or whatever. And like once we forgot, this woman like called back. She's like, I know who you are. I know who your parents are. And it would always be like, you know, it'd be like in my friend's mother's name. You know, the phone was always in like the mother's name, you know? So like, she'd be like, who is Lynn Wasslager? You know? And like, she goes, I know who she, and we're like, all right, fuck. We're like, dude, this woman's going to keep calling back. So then we put like my friend's older brother on the phone. He'd be like, they're just stupid kids. And sometimes, you know, I would like usually satiate them, even though he was like cheering us on too. It was a lot of fun, but you know, now you know, suicide, you know, is a problem.
Yeah.
you know?
It is.
And I'm not telling kids to go and do what I did, but it was a lot of fun. It was a great way for me to make friends.
Did you ever make the hotline people laugh?
No, that job is so difficult and tough because you are getting a lot of people that have a lot of real problems. And I think you view people like me that are just kind of taking up your time as real pieces of shit. And I wasn't as like,
Yeah, it was not amusing at all.
No, because you have like one guy calling up and he's like, I'm going to do it. I can't live anymore. And you're like, fuck, let me just get you to a crisis center. Where are you? We're sending someone. And then like the next call is I'm like, you want to touch my pussy? Like none of them were like, oh, what a welcome comic relief. Yeah. Like nobody working at like the suicide hotline was like, thank God. Someone's here to lighten the mood. Like they were all really disgusted. People used to say to us, they used to be like, real people need this line. What's wrong with you? That one guy was like, you're sick. You know that? You're sick. Real people need this line. We're from Long Island, so we're like, woo!
We got him going.
Yeah. We're like, oh, this fucking guy.
Great.
But we never, nobody was ever like, oh, thanks. They were always really mad. And I always wondered, how did you get that job? But I imagine that, that job was such a difficult job. Yana